We have our collage, right? And some people were asking about the transform controls. Remember up here at the top, when I switch between controls, these are the preferences for those controls. This is the transform control. This one here allows me to select the object that I want to transform and then, transform it, just like that. All right. And then I'm going to show you a couple of different things here that you can use to address your collage here. All right, so number one is adding this. I always call it the black and white cookie down here. I know it's not what it's called, but it's this thing right here. So to the left of it, we know this as the layer mask button, right? It's a white rectangle with a little gray dot, puts a layer mask on, which is this guy right here, and it masks out our area after we've selected. This black and white cookie over here is the adjustment layer, right? So what that is when I click on that, it gives me all these different choices here. I can adjust the levels, the brightness and contrast, the curves, the exposure, vibrance, all these things. Some of these words may mean something to you. Some of them may be meaningless to you. As curious people, we can experiment and extrapolate what some of these mean and just sort of try some of these out. So when I click on one of these, watch what happens here. I'm going to go layer order matters. So if here I can select all my different layers. If I go to the very top layer and I click on the black and white cookie, I can, let's say, go to color balance, and it's going to make a layer up here that is color balance. I click on this little guy right here. It allows me to change the color balance of my entire piece here. Right? Everything that's underneath this layer is going to be affected by that adjustment layer, just like so. Okay? But what do you notice is to the right of that adjustment control? What is this white rectangle? It's one of these. What do we call that? It's a layer mask, right? And right now the layer mask is white, so it means that it's wide open. How do I turn off or block a layer mask? What color? Black, right? So by adding black to this, let's say I use my black paintbrush, and I have my color black selected down here, and I'm going to make, here I'm going to click on the layer mask right there, and I'm going to paint like this. I'm only at 59% of the flow here. Let me turn my opacity up to 100%. There we go. Look what it's doing. It is deactivating whatever setting I made here by covering it in black. So you can isolate. Let's say I like that color change here, but I wanted my face to be regular colored here, right? Or its original color, the original recipe. I can paint this out carefully, and suddenly I can isolate different areas. Now that's sort of the long way, the slow way of doing it here, or I guess more artistically. The other thing that I'm going to show you is this, right? So let's say I just want to change the color of my face and nothing else in the background. So let's drag this down to the trash can here, get rid of that. I'm going to go to my face layer here, right? So this is the one where I layer mask my face. I'm going to select the layer mask. I'm going to right-click onto the layer mask. All right, so this is kind of cool. I'm going to right-click. I'm going to say Add Mask to Selection. And look at that. It already remembers the original layer mask that I put here, so I don't have to remake it. So it just activated that selection again. So all I did, let me go to Select, Deselect, or Command-D on my keyboard. I just went to the layer mask to the right of here, the one that I want to copy. I right-click on it. I say Add Mask to Selection. Selects it. So now when I go to the black and white cookie and I say Color Balance, look at this right here. It automatically added the same layer mask. It duplicated the layer mask and put it in front of Color Balance. So now when I adjust Color Balance, I click on Color Balance here, and I do this. It's only my face. So how cool is that, right? It isolates individual pieces within that thing. So let's say I wanted the chicken heads here, the chicken sisters up at the top, to be black and white. I would right-click on this layer mask. I would say Add Mask to Selection. I would go here, and I would say black and white, and I just made that chicken black and white. Same thing here, right-click, Add Mask to Selection. Come down here, say black and white, just like so. Black and white chicken, last chicken up here at the top. Right-click, Add Mask to Selection, black and white cookie, black and white, just like that. All right. So this is handy. So like for my face here, let me get rid of this color balance here. Here I put on, it's almost imperceptible on this screen that you're looking at here, but I put a curves adjustment layer on mine. What the curves is good for is adjusting, here let me click on the curves button here, this button here. You can see RGB stands for red, green, blue. I can do red, green, or blue individually. This is, it helps to color balance a little bit. It also helps to adjust the contrast. So if I pull down one side here and I push up the other side, it will allow me to adjust the contrast of my image a little bit. Yeah, why is it not adjusting my image over here? There we go. Interesting. I don't know why that one's not working here. I'm going to, maybe it's, oh, it's because it's not turned on. Oh, Mr. Horvath, there we go. So I pull this down, it makes it a little darker. I pose a classic S curve, makes that a little bit lighter, and I can adjust the curves. Now, without going into too much of a scientific explanation, adjusting your curves is better than brightness and contrast because it's adjusting more information. Brightness and contrast just sort of like grays or brightens the image a little bit, whereas the curves is actually going into the different color levels to do that. And if you have too much of one color in your piece here, like if it's too orange or too red, you can go to just the red here, and I can pull out, oops. Here I can pull red out over on this side here, and I can make it a little bit more green, try to get a little bit more of a natural color here. So again, just mess around with the different things as you see them down at the bottom. Experiment. Remember, edit, undo will undo the last move that you did. If you go to Window and you go to History, here's History right here. It'll also show you all the moves that you made since you opened your project, and you can step backwards and undo all sorts of different things here and work your way backwards or forwards, however you're doing that. All right, so just remember that history is in your back pocket. Now, the other thing I want to show you, one other adjustment that you can work on a little bit today too, is the actual layer properties itself. All right, so if you look up here on the screen, this right here says normal. All right, so what that means is that the layer that you've selected here is just working normally. You can erase, you can add, you can do whatever you want to it. All right, so what I did here for my notes, my musical notes, was I added a layer mask. Here, you can see the original one here if I deactivate this layer mask. So see, it was a white piece of paper, and it has objects floating on that white piece of paper. So I took the time to try to use a layer mask and collect everything, and I did okay, but I sort of, I cut off some pieces. I ended up contracting the mask a little bit, so it got a little bit like a licked lollipop there, like a popsicle. I didn't care for it so much. So another solution you have, let's disable that layer mask, is check this out. I select the layer that I want. I go here where it says normal, and look at all these drop downs here. Watch, as I select it, it'll automatically select them. Here's darken. Here's multiply. Look at how good multiply works. So what multiply does is it allows all the dark to stay, like the black, and it pushes all the white away automatically. So this isn't even a layer mask. This is just using a multiply on that layer, and it does a beautiful job. As I work my way down here, you can see different properties. There you go. Lighten is the opposite of multiply, where it's cutting a hole in the black, and it's allowing the white to stay there. Here's screen, similar, color, linear. These are all lights. These are overlay here. This could just be an interesting effect that you do, like this. Right, so you can try, as difference changes things around a little bit. You can try all sorts of different things here. Here's like an opposite to subtract, flip-flops a little bit. There's white, right? So now it's the same thing, but it's just lighter. So try some of these different layer styles out. The other thing that's kind of cool about this is that right next to it here, it says opacity, right? So let's say I wanted to do something with this exclusion layer here. And if I turn down the opacity of this a little bit, it's not at 100%. Maybe exclusion's not the best example here. Let's go to, let's try difference. It's about the same. Right, it sort of changes it up as you go through the opacity there. So it can also be, it doesn't have to necessarily be at 100%. So you can sort of mess around a little bit and see what happens, right? Have some fun with it. Try some different layers out. Here's overlay is a good one. Let's turn overlay down a little bit. There we go. See, because I kind of like that, right? That looks kind of cool. So if I hide that for a second, like that, I like it sort of lightening up my face a little bit. I don't know if I like this line that sort of happens down here. But I can see in the picture that white is what makes it happen, so I can just click on the picture here, go to white, and paint a little bit more white down here. Paint my neck in white here. Maybe too pale, we'll see. All right, so that's another solution there to sort of add some variation to your picture.